Wait, if you were always the calm one as a child, the understanding one, the responsible one, there is a good chance you experience something very specific and that it is still affecting your relationships, your rest, and your sense of self today. In this video, I am going to explain exactly what happened in your brain, why you have patterns you do not fully understand, and most importantly, what you can actually do about it now. Stay until the end. The last 3 minutes are the most important. There's a name for what happened to you. It's called parentification. You were cast as the calm one, the strong one, the person who kept the peace or held the family together, even if nobody ever said it out loud. In family systems psychology, this is called role reversal. The child becomes the emotional anchor or even the caretaker, while the adults lean on you for stability, comfort, or practical help. This isn't rare. Research shows that somewhere between 15 and 30% of children, sometimes more in families facing illness, addiction, or instability, are pushed into this role. Maybe you handled your parents' moods, soothed their fears, or kept siblings safe. Maybe you learned to scan for tension, to step in before things got worse. You became the reliable one because someone had to. You might have been praised for being mature, for understanding things beyond your years. Maybe you got called an old soul, but underneath that surface, your own needs got pushed aside. Instead of having space to play, to mess up, to be comforted, you learned to monitor everyone else. You learned that safety depended on your ability to read the room, to anticipate, to manage. This pattern isn't about being born responsible or just having a tough childhood. It's a specific adaptation, a survival system. Your nervous system wired itself around the job of keeping things steady, often at the cost of your own spontaneity and rest. If you recognize yourself in this, you're not alone. You didn't choose this role, but you got very good at it. It's not a flaw, it's not damage, it's a sign of how deeply you adapted to what was needed. Next, I'll show you exactly what happened in your brain and body, and why these patterns have followed you into adulthood. Long before learning to play, the brain learned to survive. In homes marked by unpredictability, the amygdala, the brain's alarm system, became hypersensitive, acting like a smoke detector set on high alert. Where most children might shrug off a slammed door, this brain stayed vigilant, scanning for threat in every raised voice or tense silence. Neuroscientists like Megan Van Tighem and Jennifer Silvers have shown that under chronic family stress, the amygdala does not just react to obvious danger. It starts firing at neutral faces and everyday tension, tuning itself to pick up the faintest hint of trouble. This is not about being dramatic, it is biology, shaped by experience during a sensitive period of development. But the amygdala does not work in isolation. The prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for curiosity, problem-solving, and play, was recruited early. Instead of building with blocks or imagining new worlds, it was calculating risk, reading the emotional weather, and planning how to avoid the next crisis. This early partnership between the amygdala and prefrontal cortex is called premature coupling. It means the executive functions of the brain were drafted into survival mode, managing threat instead of exploring safely. The body's stress system, the HPA axis, also adapted. Normally, cortisol rises and falls with the rhythm of the day. Here, the pattern flattened. Cortisol levels stayed high, like an engine idling, always ready to accelerate. Over time, this creates allostatic load, a wear and tear that lingers as chronic tension, restless sleep, or the sense that safety is always just out of reach. The brain's wiring reflects what it expects. In a world where home means uncertainty, the circuits for play and rest remain underdeveloped, waiting for calm that never comes. This is not weakness or failure, it is adaptation. Survival wiring kept danger at bay, but now those same circuits can make ordinary life feel like a series of alarms that never quite go silent. You notice it in the way you overgive. You're always scanning for what others need, stepping in before anyone asks. You say yes when you're tired. You listen more than you speak. When someone is upset, your first instinct is to fix it, even if it means pushing your own feelings aside. You filter your words, soften your tone, weigh every reaction before it leaves your mouth. That inner monitor never really turns off. Rest feels like a risk. Lying down, doing nothing, letting someone else take care of things. Your body rebels. There's a tension in your chest, a voice that whispers you haven't earned it yet. The urge to be useful is so strong, you feel guilty for needing a break. You're drawn to people who need managing, partners who are unpredictable, friends who always have a crisis. It feels familiar to step into the caretaker role, even when it leaves you drained. Studies show people with histories like yours are more likely to experience anxiety, depression, and codependent patterns in adult relationships. Caretaking becomes the default, not because you want it, but because your nervous system was trained to expect it. This isn't a character flaw. These are survival habits wired in early, meant to keep you safe. But the cost is high. Your needs, your rest, your sense of being allowed to just be. And underneath these habits, something deeper waits to be named. There's a kind of sadness that doesn't have a name. You know it by the hollow places it leaves behind. You mourn the afternoons you never got to waste, the games you never played, the feeling of being someone's responsibility instead of always being responsible. This is grief for a life that was supposed to be yours, not a loss you can measure in years or photographs, but in the weight of what you carried and the lightness you missed. It's the ache that shows up when you try to rest, when silence finally settles, and you wonder what it would have felt like to be carefree, to be held, to be allowed to need. Psychologists call this developmental or disenfranchised grief, the sorrow for a childhood that never happened, for the messiness and safety that were never an option. Studies show that nearly a third of adults who grew up too soon report a lasting sense of emptiness, a yearning for something they can't quite name. You're not grieving a person. You're grieving the freedom to be a child. That loss is real, it matters, and it deserves to be named. Let yourself pause here. Let the ache be seen. You did not imagine it. You survived it, and your story is not over. You learned early that being useful made you safe. Caretaking wasn't just something you did, it became who you are. Every time you soothed someone else or fixed a brewing crisis, your nervous system rewarded you with a brief sense of stability. Over years, that role fused with your sense of self. If you step back, even for a moment, shame flares up. You feel exposed, like you're failing at the one thing that kept you needed, maybe even loved. Therapists call this identity entanglement. It's more than a habit, it's a wiring built on years of reading the room and managing emotions that were never yours to carry. Letting go of that role can feel terrifying, as if you're losing the only anchor you've ever had. But you are not broken for feeling this way. Your brain did what it had to do to survive. Now the challenge is to see that survival system for what it is, not your whole identity, but a part that once kept you safe. You adapted because you had to. That survival system, always scanning, always steady, was your body's answer to chaos. But adaptation isn't destiny. The brain can change. Neuroplasticity means those old circuits aren't set in stone. Research shows that even 8 weeks of mindfulness can quiet the amygdala's alarms. Just 2 minutes of slow, deep breathing can shift your heart rate, signaling safety to your nervous system. Start simple. First, name what's happening. When you catch yourself over managing or bracing, say it. This is the old pattern. Second, practice stating one small need out loud, even if it feels awkward. Third, seek out resources or support groups that talk openly about parentification or childhood emotional neglect. Each action, however small, is a signal to your brain. Rest and selfhood are allowed now. This is how you begin to reclaim the space you were never given. You were wired to survive, not broken. Your amygdala learned to scan for threat, and your prefrontal cortex learned to silence your own needs. The grief underneath is real, but so is your right to rest, receive, and reclaim space. Name your pattern. Ask for one small thing. Drop your thoughts below and join me for the next deep dive.